Welcome to Roll Central. I'm Lydia Starbuck. Today we're looking at a dramatic chapter in the lives of one of Europe's most popular monarchs. The king in question is King Harold of Norway. April 2020 marks the 80th anniversary of the Nazi invasion of Norway. German troops arrived there on the 9th of April, and within hours millions of lives had changed forever. The Norwegian royal family were affected too. They had very little notice that the Nazis were looking for them. They ended up fleeing the dinner table and heading off in different directions. The country at the time was ruled by King Haakon VII. He headed off with his heir, Crown Prince Olaf. Olaf and his wife Martha made the difficult decision to part. Martha headed off with their 3 children, the future generation, the hope of the monarchy. She went back to her native Sweden. She'd been born a princess of Sweden, and she ended up in Stockholm with her children, Ragnhild and Astrid, young princesses who had no claim on the Norwegian throne because of the way the law was at the time, and Harold, a 3-year-old prince who was in line one day to become king. Events in Norway developed dramatically, and very quickly, following a coup by Quisling, King Haakon found himself in peril. He was told by the new government, who were puppets of the Nazis, that he wasn't wanted. He was asked to abdicate. He refused, and so his power was no longer recognised. Eventually he and Olaf ended up in England. Martha was still in Sweden with her children. And it's at this point that Harold comes in, because Harold was the only one of her children who could succeed under the laws as they were. And Martha soon became aware that there was a plot going on to put Harold on the throne as a puppet king, a puppet of Hitler. In the middle of June 1940, Crown Prince Olaf received a telegram from his wife. She was deeply concerned. She told her husband to tell her father-in-law that her family and Hitler may be planning to have Harold proclaimed king, with her acting as his guardian until he was old enough to rule for himself. Of course, the plan was always that he would do what the Nazis told him. Now, in the background was her knowledge that the Swedish king, Gustav V, had several times throughout the 1930s written to Hitler with what he called good advice on how he should proceed in various situations. And it seemed that the monarch, who'd been on the throne for decades, now wanted to make an effort to save the Norwegian royal house. In a telegram to Hitler on June the 16th, he asked the Germans to allow what he called a Norwegian regency in the occupied country. It was at this point that a British diplomat in Stockholm heard about this and reported it to his government in London. King Haakon is said to have become so angry that he could never forgive the Swedish king. Crown Princess Martha by this point was beginning to feel trapped. She was worried for her son, she was worried for her daughters, and she was worried that the situation could become even more dangerous. In Sweden and Germany, a solution was worked on to secure Prince Harold's reign under Hitler's control, but in London, King Haakon, Harold's granddad, and Crown Prince Olaf, his dad, were working for another solution. And they were quicker. King Haakon, along with the British government, helped to get Crown Princess Martha and her children to exile in the United States. But it was a cat and mouse game. A secret plan was laid down. Without telling her Swedish royal relations, Crown Princess Martha took Princess Ragnhild, Princess Astrid, and Prince Harold and travelled from Stockholm. Meanwhile, President Roosevelt was sending the American Navy ship SS American Legion across the Atlantic towards the Nordic region. American Legion sailed for Finland on the 25th of July, reaching Petsamo on the 6th of August as scheduled. On the 15th of August, Crown Princess Martha, along with her 3 children, and Crown Prince Harold, the prize that Hitler still sought, all 4 of them got on board American Legion, and the next day they set sail for the United States. You can only imagine the anxiety that Martha was living through as she and her children settled down on the boat, probably constantly looking over her shoulder, hoping that they would get away. The plan was a success. 12 days later, on the 28th of August, American Legion reached New York, escorted on the final part of the voyage by several American destroyers. Martha then settled in Washington with her children, and that's where they stayed until the war came to an end in 1945, and they were able to return to Norway. And Harold, of course, would go on to become king. He ascended the throne in 1991 on the death of his beloved father, King Olaf. And in the 30 years since, he's proved to be a hugely popular monarch, known for his liberalism, and the success of his reign is down to the guidance of his father, but also to the bravery of his mother, who 80 years ago began her work to secure her son's safety as Nazis plotted to turn him into a puppet king.